They usually come back. You're familiar with them because they come back to the board to review and to approve just about each meeting that we have each month. So there's 4 main commercial grant programs that we have. The 2 most popular are the facade and the interior improvement grants, which offer up to $25,000 in matching grants to improve the outside or inside of a commercial property for new construction to attract or retain a business, either small business or large business in the CRA district. We also have the commercial infrastructure grant, which is for projects coming in that are going to invest over $2 million into the city. That grant is usually to help cover the cost of any infrastructure type improvements, bearing upgrades to utility lines, overhead lines, water, sewer, sidewalks, and so on. That grant offers up to $100,000 in funds. We've only had about 3 or 4 of those since we actually created that program a few years ago. And then a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we created the commercial signage grant program for small businesses to help. It's a matching grant to assist with new exterior signage for the property, offering up to $5,000 in matching funds. That grant initially started off kind of slow, not a lot of interest. In the past year or so, it's picked up. We've seen a lot of interest, a lot of people applying for that, and a lot of new signs going in downtown. I think really because of the businesses opening back up, commercial businesses stabilizing. It's been a lot of interest, and we're excited about that. But basically, we want to bring all 4 of those commercial grant programs back for next year, maybe with a few tweaks here and there, nothing major, but bring them back for next year, which the year starts October 1st. So we'd open up the grant period October 1st and have that grant period for all those commercial grants run from October 1st to June 1st. So that's the commercial grant rundown. And as I put in the staff report, some of the projects that we've funded over the past 2 or 3 years that you're familiar with. We also have a lot of other grant projects that are out there right now that are still in development that I haven't listed, but you're mostly familiar with everything because this board has reviewed and awarded all the grants. So unless you have any questions about the commercial grants, I'm going to move on to the residential grants for this upcoming year. Yeah, Mark.
I have a question, but I can't unmute, but maybe you guys can hear me anyway.
Emily, can you unmute him?
Yes.
I think we're getting feedback, sorry. Okay, here we go.
So just a quick question, Chris.
Yeah.
2 things, well, 2. One, do you think the $50,000 minimum on the infrastructure grant holds people back? Do you think we get other people if we drop that to 30 or 20?
If you do, I mean, you're looking basically at them moving into the commercial facade grant. So if they were,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't see it as an impediment, because in that case, they usually just apply for the facade grant, which is for anything on the outside or exterior of the property. So I don't believe so.
All right. Then just the only other question is, I'm always surprised that we don't have a flood of applicants and we have to decide and do triage. You know what I mean? In terms of signage grants, and if signage may be a little more active, but on these commercial grants. So I've seen us advertise. I'm just a little curious if you have any thoughts about why we don't run out of money sooner in terms of the grant funding.
Well, we're actually getting pretty close to running out for this upcoming year. Last year, we did fund a healthy amount of applicants, and we did give a $100,000 grant for the new Allura project, which is going to take up a big chunk. So we're pretty close. We do get a lot of applications that come in that just don't meet all the requirements. They don't they don't put all the required documents into the application, and we have to reject it, or the business just doesn't come. The project just doesn't happen.
Okay. That's the part I don't see, I think. I think it's a great program. So I'm just,
there's a lot more that come to our office to our office than come back to the board for review.
Okay, that's all for me.
Anyone else?
Okay, then if not, I'm gonna hopefully get a chance to read the 3 grants for residential grant programs that we kind of came up with over the past few months, put them out there. And we're now looking for to pick your brains and kind of see what kind of suggestions or changes that would need to be made for these residential grants. We haven't done residential grants in the past few years. The focus was primarily on NSP, and then we moved into commercial grants and projects. But we kind of want to bring it back now because there is a need out there. And the first one is with a window and door replacement program, basically a hardening grant, weatherization or hardening grant for windows and doors, but primarily focused only in the historic districts of the city, which isn't much within the CRA district. You're looking at the downtown Jewel area, areas, the zones are basically the districts 1 or 2 blocks off of Lake and Lucerne. The reason we came up with this is because we noticed how difficult it's been for a lot of people that want to upgrade their windows, put in impact glass or hurricane resistant glass windows and doors, living in a historic district, and the difficulty that they have to go through getting it done, getting approved with the city, whether it's the style, color, frame type, material that's required because of the historic requirements. So that was one grant that we came up with, offering up to $10,000 in matching funds for the replacement, complete replacement of basically their windows and doors in historic property. We put a bunch of the requirements in there, rules and whatnot. First come, first served. Till the funding runs out. Basically, I think we had a limit of only 15 to 20 residences during the first year of this program, and then evaluate the program at the end of that. Second residential grant that we came up with was a pretty simple new exterior paint grant for all single family homes in the CRA district, prioritizing homes west of Dixie first. So it'd be open to all single family homes, owner occupied homesteaded properties or homes in the CRA district. But again, prioritize Tropical Ridge, Royal Point Siena, the Sunset Ridge neighborhood before we kind of offer to the other properties that are in the CRA district east of Dixie Highway. This grant would offer up to, I think, $5,000 in matching funds. And it's really just for, it's really simple to pressure wash, paint patch, and, bring the exterior of the house back up to, good look. Both those grants would be open from January 1st through June 1st. We'd be taking applications. They really wouldn't come back to the CRA board to review. Unless you guys want to change it, it'd be all reviewed by staff, and we'd manage it. And staff would manage everything. And the third program we're kind of still working on because we need to have meetings with some of our nonprofit partners and PBSO, and this is to help with the installation of free smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, security lights, and like Ring doorbells, camera doorbells for households. And again, prioritize the Royal Point Siena, Tropical Ridge neighborhoods west of Dixie Highway, open to homesteaded single family properties, residential properties, and fund hopefully between, again, 20 to 25 residences or properties each year. So this is nothing set in stone yet. These are basically just an outline of what we've been working on, and I'm gonna hear your thoughts before we move forward and create actual applications for these programs. That's
Okay.
what
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I have a few.
Okay.
So Chris.
Yep.
Has the planning and zoning department provided some feedback on these windows on the first category, window and door replacement?
No, you guys are the first to hear about this. We have not run
Okay.
these by the city staff yet.
Couple ways that I think this could go south is someone having, you know, getting very far down the road with a window company and then realizing they can't install those windows, right? Or doors.
Mhm.
Very, very important. It can be very nitpicky. So I would encourage you to get like very specific feedback to include in the grant, right? I just wouldn't want someone wasting their time or getting frustrated or worse,
One thing we
installing
did put in
windows and getting
here,
in trouble.
sure, we did put in here that they have, in order to be eligible for the grant from the CRA, they would have to first receive permission from the historic board.
Yeah, and I would just encourage you to do it first, right? Not apply, get it, and then
Correct.
get some bad news.
Right, it has to be included in the application, their approval from.
That approval. Okay, good, good. The only other comment I had was on the Royal Poinciana Tropical Ridge pilot program. I would just like to get some feedback from the nonprofit partners on I think the doorbell camera can be a good idea, but it also saddles you with the contract. So I don't know if if the nonprofit is prepaying, but I just don't want to end up with someone with a contract they can't cancel on a financial burden on a project that's supposed to be a help.
Yeah, that's something we need to talk to PBSO about. I don't know how the Ring doorbells work, really. You know what kind of agreement they. I don't know enough. We don't know enough about them yet to see how what a homeowner's required to have
Okay.
after they're installed.
I'd like to see us do more of this residential side, and I think this is a really good start. I'd be curious. Oh, the last question was 50-50 grant. Does that mean 5,000 from the homeowner, 5,000 from us, or is it 10 and 10?
For which one?
Sorry, the back up to the window and door replacement. A 50-50 grant up to $10,000. Does that mean
10,000 from us? No, 10,000 from us. Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because windows are very expensive.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Yes, hi, this is Brent Whitfield. I'm just curious, and maybe I haven't been following it. I know that we've done a lot of really good things in the community with respect to affordable housing. And I understand from your description that some of these things may be needed in the CRA to improve building stock. And that it seems like maybe there's almost a tax on replacing your windows from the city if you're in a historic district. And we're like kind of coming back and subsidizing the difference in that tax that is from the historic district. But I feel like there's an opportunity cost here for us that money we're not putting towards commercial grants or affordable housing initiative or other things is going to this. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the impetus for us to expand into these areas that there isn't like an income requirement or somebody that has a really nice home and could afford to replace their windows could just be applying for the grant because they know how to put the application together. And I don't know if that's the best use of your time or our funds. So I'm trying to understand a little bit where the impetus came from to create this program.
Really, it was just regarding feedback we've received from residences themselves regarding the process and that they have to go through with the city, and basically cause them to stop because of the historic requirements that they have to go through. It's just been difficult for them. Now, I think for next year, we could probably expand it if it's budgeted to other areas of the CRA for sure. But we just want to check it, try it out. And because that's the most difficult because of the requirements from the historic district. That's why our focus was primarily start with the historic districts first. I think we have done in the past, though. We have had rehab programs, grant programs for the entire CRA district. And then that was a few years ago, stopped it. And now we're bringing it back. But the cost of materials is high that we kind of want to isolate it to just a pocket right now of the district.
Is there any consideration about income or property value requirement? I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Like, there's a lot of really nice historic homes in College Park in my neighborhood. I used to be involved in the association, not in the CRA. They don't need money. It's perfectly fine. But it's kind of weird that the same 1920s mission style house in downtown Jewel could get new windows or $10,000 towards new windows
Mhm.
because they were in the CRA district when maybe their property value is the same, the income of the resident is the same. And I don't know, I'm just kind of missing what the intention, like as an example, on Dixie, we gave money to Dunkin' Donuts that probably could have been built without it, but it's absolutely part, in my understanding, the core mission of our redevelopment to try to make that corridor more economically viable.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't know if it's part of what I understand as our core mission to help folks. Maybe if it's an affordable housing thing, but paint their house or replace their windows. I don't know. That's just where I stand. This is an open discussion, so sharing my thoughts.
Yeah, and that's something we could look at if you guys want to do a income verification for some of these programs as well.
I mean, to me, the NSP program is one of the best things the CRA did. I had no participation in it at all. It was before I was on it, but did an awesome job of revitalizing housing stock and affordable housing in the community. And if you ask me as a resident at that time, what I thought, community redevelopment agency is supposed to address blight. You had whole blocks in the CRA district that needed housing upgrade, and it was geared towards that affordable housing and revitalization. So in my mind, this needs to have some attachment to that. Like if I drive by a house that's on the downtown Jewel home tour and they got $10,000 towards windows from us, I'm not going to be like, wow, that's addressing blight, you know? So I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, Drew, do you have
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts really are, align with you, Brett, a little bit on it. But I guess my other question was, did we budget anything for these residential grants in the fiscal year starting October 1st?
Yes.
And how much was that?
We
Joan, do you have
budgeted
that number?
245,000.
Okay.
Now, that
and so-
245,000 doesn't necessarily have to be for these particular grants, because obviously we just came up with these, to bring to you for this meeting to discuss, but we could also use that for, buying property to work with NSP partners to build more affordable housing, or use some of that money to providing soft seconds once we do have some affordable units available. There's obviously other things that can be used for. We were just looking for, some kind of small grants to also offer to our residents this coming year.
I am also looking for the link to blight. And so maybe there are circumstances in historic districts where that connection can be made. But that would sort of be developed in the criteria, I would suppose.
I mean, honestly, $245,000 is not a lot of money if you think about it. So, choosing maybe one or two of these residential grants that you would like to try, just to see what kind of impact we have, I think might be a good idea. We're not necessarily asking you to give us a yes on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan, if I can.
Yep.
So the light just went on in my head, Joan. I remember asking about the line item. I pulled it up, neighborhood housing programs 245. That was new in our budget. And I was thinking, what can we do with $245,000? And now I see you guys have an idea that could maybe get to 60 houses a year. So I appreciate how you've configured this. But for my comfort level, I would like if there was some kind of income requirement or affordable housing element or something that kind of kept us on mission. And that, again, that's just my thought.
Sure, I think I would rather not do the program at all than make it only for those people who, let's say, make 80% or below. I don't think, and I totally could be wrong here. If you're making 80% or below, you're going to replace all of the windows and doors in your home. That might not be something that you're able to do. If we really want to, make an impact on those homes making, I don't know, whether it's 80% or below or 120% below, I think we'd probably get a lot more bang for our buck when it comes to, like we're maybe going to do tonight, which is, purchasing some lots that we can then, work with our nonprofit partners to develop more affordable units.
So I agree. I'm not really as concerned with the income issue and affordable issue. My concern is that we focus on homestead properties. I really
Have
don't
to
want
be
to.
homesteaded.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no. This says
Well,
property owner.
could be rental properties as well.
Yeah.
In this grant, we have rental properties,
Yeah.
as long as they're
Mistake.
used for residential uses. But that could
Yeah.
be again
No.
adjusted.
Yeah, I would like to see us take that out for sure. Like, we're not trying to, if you, as a business venture, you choose to buy a property and fix it up for rental, that's a very different proposition to me than somebody that wants to buy a home and fix it up for them and their family, or just them. And so I would like to see if we have support, kind of informally, to make that home subject to homestead.
With that.
Good.
I agree. The one thing I'll say is I remember seeing numbers one time about how much of the CRA housing stock is rentals and not homesteaded, single family homeowners. And so I wonder, which I still support, but I wonder how many of the houses drop off.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that's wrong. But I bet you all the houses I'm gonna drive by on the way home and think, wow, this could use a paint job or this could use windows, is a rental,
There's a big shift right now. I spoke, because I spoke to Jordan the other day. We had a long conversation, and there's a lot more homeowners coming in and
Awesome.
bumping up the absentee landlords, and so there's a big shift right now. Which
That's
is,
terrific.
we were on the board many years ago. You might remember this, I do, when we had that study done, and they said that the renter to owner ratio in Lake Worth is incredibly unhealthy. In fact, they said it was on, like, being on life support as far as the city. Having so many rentals is a per these hired consultants was a big problem. So right now there's a shift playing out. So
That's
it's a
great.
great point, but I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, I still support what you're saying. I just remember, maybe it's a dated fact, but I remember just looking at a map and being like, oh my gosh, the rental rate in some of our.
You're absolutely right. It's been a
Crazy high.
I think it's been a big issue. I have nothing against renters, but it's
No.
a city needs a healthy balance, and any city. And I
Agree.
think we're starting to see that move towards healthy. So, any other conversation?
I think we gave Joan and Chris lots of unclear direction.
Clear as mud. I mean, we can always revisit if we need to, tweak. That's the good thing about these grants. If we get flooded with stuff that we really weren't aiming towards, there's no reason we can't pivot. It's all subject to approval. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Chris, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm
And we'll
gonna-
come up with some applications, hopefully, and then get them to you, the board, before the end of the year, because we would like to have some started by, again, January 1st, to available to the residents.
Great. Okay, let's move on to action item. We're on 8 action agenda, and we're on A, interlocal agreement with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council for public workshops and development of a master plan for downtown CRA properties. Joan, I believe that Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council was the ones that actually came up with that study that I just referred to.
Well, interestingly enough, I was looking back in our history to see kind of how we even came about the purchase of properties and talking about parking in the downtown. And it was actually from a master plan done in 2018, which was the downtown cultural master plan that kind of talked about parking and infill and retail opportunities and needed housing. That was actually done by Lord Consulting, and there were what we thought many opportunities in there, although, you know, it was all words, there weren't necessarily pictures associated with it of how we could help the downtown as far as, you know, supporting the businesses down there, but also providing more housing opportunities for people. And parking was one of those things. So that's how the conversation started. And then in 2019, the city actually hired WGI to go ahead and do a parking study that resulted in some sketches of some possible parking garages on L&M. But as other properties became available, like those on K and First, the thought from city administration and the then city council was that a parking garage probably would make more sense on K and First, since the city owned some land over there already. And then the sites at L&M would be better suited for some kind of mixed use project. So fast forwarding to today, because, you know, it's a it's a long and bumpy history. We do have a developer, Rosemary Properties, who was selected by the selection committee and by the board to do a project in the downtown. Mr. Rosemary is still very interested in doing some kind of project on L&M that is mixed use and contains a you know, considerable amount of housing. He did a preliminary drawing that, you know, we certainly understand that people weren't really enthralled with, and I think, you know, the idea, the response from him to that was, well, I don't really understand what it is you guys are looking for. So, you know, if we're looking at just the design guidelines, are we looking at the design guidelines plus the LDRs plus what the vision is for downtown, then exactly what is that vision? And I don't think we have a clear understanding of what that is. And I realize that people change and commissions change, administrations and staffs change like that. But I think that's something we've never really addressed head on. So just to bring you up to date, over the last few weeks, the city has ordered structural assessments on all of the 7 properties. So the results will be in soon. And if we were to move forward, I wouldn't move forward without us having that information. You know, during our usual RFP process, you know, we write an RFP, we get proposals, we have a selection committee review, and then we bring it to the board, and then whatever is drawn or whatever is submitted to us gets refined by the city, and the city community sustainability department goes to design and the architecture and you know, the densities, and looks at FAR, and they, you know, make all these changes to whatever is proposed. And I think, you know, we were kind of relying on that process to bring us forward as far as the element is concerned. However, that process didn't really come with a for sure feeling from members of the public and our new commission that this was really something that we could get to there from here. So, you know, over the last few months, I reached out to Dana Little at Treasure Coast. Treasure Coast has been an amazing partner with us over, you know, the last, I don't know, 15 years or so that I've been here. They actually did the historic design guidelines for downtown, so they're very familiar with it. They did the TOD master plan, which was done back in, when I first got here, I believe in 2007. And Dana and I really discussed, what has gone on up until now and, the kind of cloud hanging over our head and how do we, again, get to a project with all these different things that have to come into play. So we have to come up with something that is allowed by ordinance first and forward. It meets all the design guidelines, whether they're the thoroughfare design guidelines or the historic guidelines. And then also on top of that, I think we also have to take into consideration this, whatever this is, the certain design, height, and density that, the community is saying that they want, but that also makes financial sense for a developer. And we need to have that information before we either move forward with Rosemary or we do a new RFP. So, in my head and thinking about this, we've listened to the commission say certain things to us. So, and that includes they want us to have substantial public input. We have to come up with something that is financeable because the developer has to obviously build it. We need to come up with something that meets the needs of the community. And then we also have to take into consideration some of the ramifications of where the money came to purchase these properties. So for the city, it's the penny sales tax and whether or not that needs to be repaid and what those requirements are. I'm not really sure. I think I know them, but we could certainly go over those again. And then for the CRA, it's, our goal is to create value. So we don't necessarily need to be repaid everything that we've, put in to purchase these properties, but we certainly have to get value back out of it. And that means future TIF revenues. So, so Dana and I have been going back and forth the last few months and trying to kind of, synthesize all of this information with some input from Mayor Betty Rush, which I really appreciate this, and come up with a scope that I'm hoping will give us I don't want to say answers, but will give us a process that we can follow to get to the point where we can make an informed decision. So I have that in front of you. It is going to be mostly online due to COVID. The cost has come down since last time we talked about it from, I think it was about 146,000 to 100,000. That 100,000 is needed because we need somebody who's going to run the performas and come up and tell us, okay, everybody wants, let's say, a 2 or 3 story building. Okay, but that's not going to produce what we need it to produce. So the goal is to come out of this with maybe 3 potential design scenarios that we can then use to put in this new RFP if we decide to do so. And if the board agrees to the scope and doing the interlocal with Treasure Coast, I would also ask the board to ask the commission to also sign on to this process, because this all came out of a plan, and we have lots of great plans, but we kind of falter when it comes to implementation. And these are expensive sites to hold on to and expensive sites to maintain. And I don't think we want to, continue to see what I would consider blight in our downtown. We want to end up with a project that's going to hopefully make at least the most people happy that we possibly can. So I think, it's not obviously, for sure, but I think, we need to try to come up with an outcome that everybody's going to feel comfortable with us moving forward and do it in a timely fashion. So Dana Little from Treasure Coast is on the call if you have any questions for him. And obviously I'm here for any questions as well. Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, Joan. I'll go first on this one, just so I have a couple of thoughts. I would like to hear how they plan to gather feedback from more than just the folks that are vehemently opposed to the project, because there's a basic Machiavellian principle that you're going to hear from those that are opposed to change as opposed to those that may even benefit or be happy with the change. It's just a basic principle. So I want to know how we reach those people and hear from everybody as opposed to maybe just a group of 10 or 12 people that have already shown interest, that they're opposed to it.
So I can answer that, and Dana can speak as well if he would like to. But if you look at the interlocal or excuse me, the scope of services, you can see that we decided to do 20 interviews. And these 20 interviews would be set up with people that I think perhaps we get the names from the commission and our board. And they can either be individuals or they can be members of a group. So let's just say that there's a particular group of business people in the downtown that we would want to talk to. We might talk to them all as one group as part of that 20, or we might talk to individuals. So we could get more than just the people who are going to call in on those occasions that we have Zoom meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Dana, did you want to add anything? Can you unmute Dana, please? Hi.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. It's good to see all of you, and Mayor, good to see you again as well. And I'd like to thank Joan for inviting us back for yet another very simple and uncomplicated project.
Always.
These are my favorites, and but your question is a very good one. I would have a better answer if we weren't in the situation that we're in now, which is COVID. You know, we were looking forward to this being perhaps the first in maybe a couple of years public, engagement process, like in person. But we have done a number of these public outreach processes virtually. And while they're not, I think, in some ways they're actually more successful. I mean, the interview process that Joan was mentioning, it's actually easier to schedule people virtually because they don't have to drive anywhere, et cetera. But, the goal with the interviews is to not only let folks know what's going on, and we've committed to 20. If we go beyond that, that is what it needs to be. But it's meant to be an iterative process too, where we're not only asking folks questions, but we're letting them know what's going on so that they can reach out to their constituents in the neighborhoods and say, look, this is important. This is an issue that I think was even an election issue at one point. And so that's maybe the first wave of that. And then we intend to have a couple of public, Zoom interactions, workshops, if you will, where we'll, presentations and information, allow for question and answers or comments, et cetera. We'll do everything in our power, given the limitations these days, to make sure that there is as much outreach to all sectors as possible. So I'll leave you with that. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. But we're a year and a half into this now, and we were making it up a year and a half ago. I think we're getting better at it, but it's still not the same old charrette process that we used to have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have, Brent?
Thank you very much, Dana. I really appreciate it. I think Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council was kind of perfectly situated as a third-party group that can really, negotiate some of the different interests for the property. So I think this is a great choice, and I'm glad. I know you're familiar with our city and our interests. The question I had really was the comment that Joan made about being able to run some pro forma. So our charge, as I've understood it to date, is really about redevelopment and kind of enhancing economic opportunities for our business owners and also increasing availability of housing stock. So when I served on the selection committee for this, originally when we picked Rosemerty, those were the ways I was looking at it. I wasn't looking at it necessarily from an aesthetic perspective, and I also wasn't maybe looking at it, with respect to some urban planning concepts that Dana, you and your fellow professionals may have more thought of. But when we're weighing the scores out at the end, what does the pro forma look like, and how will that weigh into the report that you show? If it's economically viable, what is the metric that shows that? Is it price of the unit? Is it, how does that work?
That's an excellent question. And I don't have the exact answer for that for you right now. The way that we're approaching this is that there is public investment, city and CRA, into properties in downtown. And those values are changing. In fact, I'm sure they've changed. I was interested in your conversation earlier about the ratio of rental to home ownership and how that's shifting dramatically in Palm Beach County and South Florida over the last year because of COVID, or in partly due to COVID. So we have a developer who we've worked with in different ways over the years, who has a lot of experience in Palm Beach County and South Florida doing mid-range, mid-level, or moderate density housing, and is going to work with our team in order to be able to help us understand local and current construction costs, land costs, what is the expected return on investment for a developer, and that way we can measure different scenarios. We may hear from the community, we only want historic structures to remain and two-story buildings to be built. Well, that's a vision, and that may be a perfectly sound vision. We also know that the land is valued based upon what the current allowable densities and intensities are. We also know that there may be some restrictions to the investment from the public sector, from the city and CRA, into the purchase of these properties. So we have to triangulate that and find out, okay, if we're going to go with the community's vision of low density, historic preservation, etc., there's going to be a cost to the city and CRA to carry that project forward, versus the flip side of that, the opposite end of that might be, okay, well, if somebody were to build out the absolute maximum, the community may not like it, but there may be a larger return on the investment, not only for the developer, of course, but also for the CRA and for the city. Somewhere in the middle, you know, and we have to factor in things like, you know, if you go above 3 or 4 stories, you're more than likely looking at structured parking. That comes with a huge price tag. That's going to change the dynamics of a particular project. Not only the cost of the project and what the CRA might recruit, but also the affordability of that. So we're going to do our best to look at these parcels and these various scenarios and try to offer strategies to the city and to the CRA that give you the ability to make sound decisions that meet somewhere in the middle between what the community desires and what, you know, your current entitlements allow, land values, construction costs, etc. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a mystery that remains to be seen. And, you know, so we're going to be working, our design team will be working side by side with the development team that would be, they're not a development team proposing for the project, but would be assisting us with their local experience in terms of construction costs, land values, return on investment, and really what sale prices or rental or lease amounts might be. So that's a long-winded answer to a short question. But.
Oh, I beg to differ. I had a long-winded question, so I think that was appropriate. I'm glad to hear it, and one of the main reasons is because I think your scope is good, but our deliverable when this is over, in my mind, is an RFP that hits the street that developers respond to. And hopefully that's something that all the parties that you interview are able to weigh in on and agree with, because I think the pushback we got was the RFP should have been written differently or something like that in the process that we went through. So I'm hopeful that by bringing a developer in on your team that can give some perspective, whether or not they would respond to an RFP that came out with these kind of guidelines, that's what I'm hopeful to learn from this, just as much as anything else. So thank you, Dana. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Drew?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. It's very helpful. I appreciate you stepping up and helping us with this. I think my question is more for the mayor, if you don't mind. So we've got property, CRA has property, and the city has property, and it would all be subject to this exercise. And so I know Joan suggested that the city buy off on doing the exercise as well. And you helped Joan. So I'd just appreciate your thoughts on it, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Sure, no, of course, that's sort of why I'm here tonight. Except besides the fact that I am your liaison, and I'm trying to figure out what my role is with the CRA as the liaison, but we'll work on that. Yeah, I mean, there's no question that these particular pieces of property are in the downtown are probably the most important development that's going to happen in the city. And I understand and I agree with when Brent talked about part of the concept with the original RFP was to get, feet on the street, to get more people downtown. I am greatly encouraged and supportive of the Mid, the Bohemian, the other one. And they came before the commission and we worked on them and they worked with us. So I think we've got a lot of new people coming into the city, and I've spoken with people that live at the Mid, they love it. This is a real tricky one because we do have property owned currently by the CRA. We have public funds invested in it. And the commission is behind, and I think this is a real good opportunity for the commission and the CRA to work together jointly. I have met with Dana and Joan last week, a while back. And, this is something that the commission is totally behind, working out something that fits the city in a way that you're never going to make everybody happy. Okay. And this was a campaign issue. I mean, this is my downtown. This is my neighborhood. So when this, I was very,
Yep, mine too.
Right. It's in between my office and my house. So it's 2 blocks. I'm 2 blocks from my office. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with Dana and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning. There might be somebody out there that comes and says, listen, I've got this great idea. Let's tout it. Let's shop it around to the people. And let's, if somebody has that, if that's a possibility, we could also do that. So we are committed, to answer your question without rambling on too much. We are committed. I do want to work with the CRA. Joan and I have developed a very good working relationship together since I was elected. We started out, hi, what about you? What about you? And that was very really, because when this thing happened, I was like, what's going on? So I have been really encouraged by the relationship that Joan and I have, it's like we're 2 adults. We're actually able to talk and work on it and talk without, agendas. It's very refreshing. I really respect Joan and I respect the work that you all do. I'm very pleased that the structure. One of my big problems when the buildings started getting purchased was that everybody got evicted. That made me crazy. And so what we're doing now, and the city's paying for it, I believe, is having the structure. Having those buildings. Just what condition are they in? And they God knows. We'll find out pretty soon. So once we get that information, I'm just looking forward to this as an opportunity for the CRA and the commission to work in a creative way to come up with something that best will serve the city. My office is across from Lucerne. I was not a fan of a Lucerne. I'm still not a fan of Lucerne, but so I'm a little shy of big buildings downtown. When the Element came out, I was just like, no, that can't happen. So I'm part of I think your agenda item is to abandon that RFP. And I would ask, and I would encourage you to do that, because I really do. I do believe we need a fresh look at this. And I think that the Treasure Coast Planning Group are so well equipped to do that for us, with us. So that's my 2 cents, or 4 cents as it is, because I talk. So
that sounds really good. I guess if we support it tonight, then it would need to go over to the city commission to get city commission endorsement or whatever it is. I think we're paying for it, but because you have properties subject to the whole exercise, it feels.
And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to be the spokes, again, this is this is a project which is very close to my heart and to my home. So I'm happy to, and I think it's no secret that I sort of took the lead on the objection to the element. So I'm happy to be the person and take whatever nicks and cuts come with it to take it to the commission, take it to the public, and work as we go through these charrettes. And I was, when Dana and Joan and I met, it was pretty funny because I'm so sick of charrettes. I'm just like, I've been charretted out. We talk and talk, nothing happens. So I had to back off that a little bit. And so I want to be an active part of this process. This is really important to me. So, you know, whatever I can do to help and make this economically viable, appropriate, reflective of the city, of who we are, I'm going to do everything I can while I'm mayor to do that. You have my absolute word on it.
I totally appreciate it. Those are great words to hear. So I think I guess in my mind, I'm thinking of process. So if we support it, I think getting the structural information back on the existing structures would be important for the city to think about while you're also thinking about this approach to the properties. And so at some point in the future, maybe within the next month, we might be able to see it on a city agenda if we
Yeah,
were to support it.
Yeah, right now, you know, a lot of things are being sort of held at bay. We are doing interviews for the manager position. So I think it's important for us, and I know that we're gonna have a joint meeting. We've been talking about doing this. And Joan and I have talked about this, and I think until we have a city manager hired who can be part of that process, it would be unfair to them to have a joint meeting without them being involved. So that's hopefully, God knows this, next Thursday. I think you probably all got invitations. If you didn't, you should know about it. Next Thursday night, I think it's at the Beach Club to meet the 5 candidates. It's really hard. I mean, you know, there's 4 new people on the commission. And you need a new city commissioner. You have a new city manager. It's like the L&M project, the pool. Our plates are full. So, but that was the first thing I think to do, is to get a city manager on board so that they're part of the process rather than walking into a process that they've not been involved in. And that's going to happen. I mean, God willing, the creek don't rise. We're going to hire somebody in a week from Friday. Or whenever that meeting is going to be. So it's daunting. I mean, we're looking through the resumes, we're having individual conversations with them. You know, I mean, every town is unique, but we are more unique than most. And a town of our small, yeah, but I've been here, you know, I think I've said this, you know, I've been coming here since 1967. So I just love this one. But, you know, for 7 square miles, we've got a lot going on. You know, we're not Lake Clark, we're not a bedroom community. We have, you know, an electric, you know, we have all the services that we provide. So whoever comes in, it's an interesting mix of a small geographic, fairly small population with every service that a city could possibly offer. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I hope we make a good decision and we have a successful manager. So no, I'm really glad to be the liaison to the CRA. It's a very important. Someone thought I was too critical of the CRA, and you know, I said it at a city commission meeting, and I caught a little flack for it. I live in a cottage. I own a couple cottages. I love them, but we really shouldn't say to people, if you don't want to live in a historical cottage, you do not get to live in the. Hence, I have no objection to the Bohemian. The people want to live in that. I mean, they're lovely apartments. They're just great. So if you don't want to live in a cottage, you still get to live here. And you guys have helped create that, and I appreciate that.
I truly appreciate it too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate your commitment to engaging and getting the city commission involved.
Yeah,
I got one other question. That's fine. I got one other question for Joan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, perfect.
So Joan, we had picked up about a year ago that property at First and K on the northeast side.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering whether that should be included as part of this, or if there's a reason not to include it.
That's a really good question. So originally I thought we should include it. And then after Betty and I spoke, we decided not to. And it's obviously not my decision, it's yours. But the thought was, regardless of what happens at L&M and potentially the other side at K and First, I think it would be nice to hold that property. And I know everybody's not going to agree with me on this one, but I think it would be nice to work with our NSP partners and potentially other partners and do an affordable housing project there.
It's one of the properties that's raw land right now, so there's no what's gonna happen to the cottages. It's buildable, and I mean, to have a nice affordable home ownership project downtown would be, I think it's a great idea, Joan.
Thank you.
All right, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Mark, you gonna-
Before I say this next part, Dana, I can't think of anyone else who could do this monumental task. I've worked with you in the past. This scope is written extremely well. I can tell you spent a lot of time on it and careful forethought. You and your professionals that you work with, I can't think of a better group to undertake this. But the story I would tell is really a story to illustrate the fallacy of sunk cost, which is, let's pretend you have a restaurant that's 5 blocks away, it's your favorite restaurant. You get 3 blocks to the restaurant and realize they're closed on Tuesdays. You should stop. Maybe you're tempted to go the next 2 blocks, just get to the restaurant because that was your intent when you started, but that would be a mistake. And that's kind of silly, right? But the fallacy of sunk cost is because you've invested time and money and blood, sweat, and tears in an effort, that value should influence your decision moving forward. And that's a mistake. We're at a stop on this. And I think it's the perfect time to evaluate how to achieve the result we want and to examine how things got a little sideways. In my opinion, and I'm just one vote, where we got sideways is through a lack of direction from some previous commissioners and some clear direction from previous commissioners. We undertook an effort that we can't vote on, that we can't ultimately decide on, and that's fine. I like that I'm a CRA board member who doesn't have judicial powers or pass development orders. But the problem I have with the public outreach is the point of origin. I would support it and I would support funding it if it were a city commission initiative funded by the CRA in which the CRA participated. The reverse, I can't support. I don't think it gets us where we need to go. I would want the city commission to take ownership of the effort and the initiation of the effort. I'd be glad to help with funding. And the CRA could be a sideline assistance to the city commission's goals and directives on what should happen with those projects. If we can't do that, if the city commission is just participating in our effort, I think that's duplicating the same mistake, and I can't support it.
I was actually going to just kind of point something out, I think just as a formality, I think, Drew, what you had said in regards to our approval having to go to the city commission is not the case. So, but what could be done is our approval could be subject to their approval. So maybe then Mark might feel more comfortable with the fact that, you know, it's like we're basically saying we're okay with this, but it needs to be voted on by the commission and approved.
And I'll say again, I'm only one vote, but my issue is a core issue, which is the point of origin and the main mover on this effort needs to be the city commission, not them participating. The main origin needs to be them, and we can participate.
I see, yeah. I don't disagree, but I'm concerned that we get to the back of a long line. That's my concern. And I respect what Betty said, the mayor said in regards to the amount of work they have on their plate. And I think that them, voting and approving on something that we initiated is different than them initiating and voting on it. I could be wrong. But I don't disagree with your point. I just don't want to necessarily hold it up for it.
No, and Mr. Chair, I don't mean that in any negative sense. I
Right.
just mean it is a recipe for the same result, in my opinion.
Right. I personally do not see a middle ground in this battle. So I respect Dana and I respect what your organization does, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see the middle ground, unfortunately, but
No, I'm,
yeah, Mayor, sorry.
I'm a little, yeah, I mean, I'm not really following. I don't quite understand.
Are you talking about my comments? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to elaborate.
Please.
Here's the city commission are elected to lead the direction of the city. And I know that the commission has a lot on their plate, but the idea that we could arrive at a result in which a design that the CRA likes is brought forward and embraced by the entire town,
Mhm.
I do not believe that's possible. What I do think is possible is the city commission leading this effort, whether it's funded by the CRA or not, and whether it means it crosses election lines, election terms or not,
Right,
and defines a path that includes core questions like heights downtown, parking problems downtown or the lack thereof, all the host of problems that inherently this project has to address or not address, and nail or not nail. And I don't think the CRA should be at the center of that tornado. I don't, but I do think the city commission should.
tornado sounds so negative. I'm trying,
It has been negative up to now.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you may be responding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there has been a perceived perception in the past that, the city commission and the CRA are not somehow communicating and working together, that they're separate entities. Excuse me. Hey, it's okay. Am I close on that one?
Well, sure.
We thought we were. I will say, Mayor, that we thought we were communicating well. But that was a different board and a different, staff. So I don't think that we thought we were flying solo. I thought we were hand in hand, but things change and leadership changes, and now we're here.
Yeah, and my impression from having been here, 6 or 7 months now, is that without being negative or judgy, what I'm hearing from city staff, is that from this commission, from the current commission, they are getting a much better sense of leadership and direction than they were getting. And that is great. I'm very glad about that. So how can we figure this out? Because there's got to be a way to do it, because we have this land and we got to figure out how to do it. So would it be helpful to you if under my initiative, it would be probably the second, we told staff we need 2 weeks, because we were getting our agenda packets on Thursday for Tuesday, which wasn't working. So we're a little bit, we backed it up a little bit to 2 weeks. Would you feel comfortable, and I'm sort of talking just out of my head right now, what would help? How can we help that? Because I want this to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was from my opinion, right? And I'm just, again, one vote,
No,
like
go ahead.
I'm
What are you
not,
talking about?
it's fine. But I have my own thoughts.
Yeah,
From my opinion, you would change the origin of the community outreach, meaning it's a city commission
okay,
agenda item that the city commission both reviews the scope
okay,
and with a funding agreement from the CRA.
Thank you.
The city commission is the quarterback during the entire process, and the city commission kind of owns the result.
Okay.
That to me could work. And I think,
I agree. I agree. Here's how, because we had a big process conversation the other day. I was a little critical of some of my commissioners because they were adding things on. Here's how, and the L&M project is obviously not it's something that's been there and talk about. What I would like to do, and Joan, stop me if you think I'm wrong, would be to bring this to the city commission, the agreement, with the idea that the CRA would fund this because we don't have the money to do it. And I understand what you're talking about because we are the ones that are going to get booted out if it's not a good idea. I get that. You're not elected officials.
Right.
So what if we did something like this? What if we did, because we just have to find a way to make it work. That's all we have to do. And there's a way to make it work. So what if we did something like bring it to the city commission, this agreement? I could ask, I could get it on the agenda. And explain to the, and maybe have, this is where a joint meeting would be so helpful. And have someone, Joan or Brendan or somebody from the, as part of the agenda item, a presentation, maybe presentation. Let me just think this through. Okay. Bring it to the city commission with the Treasure Coast agreement funded by the CRA. So we would be more the sponsors of it than the CRA. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
yeah. And again, I think I'm not speaking for my fellow commissioners, but this item may pass, right? I'm just trying to express how I feel about it. But to
Can we
me,
hear from anybody else? Let's hear from the others,
Yeah.
just before we go on a rabbit hole.
right.
Chapters.
Well, so I think the critical part to that, Mayor, is to hear a timeline, because I think if I heard that this could be heard and voted on by the city by the end of the month, and then we could get it onto ours to approve for the funding part of it, which we'd have to do.
I'm looking at my calendar and let me
Now
tell
we're
you.
talking minimum, 6 weeks,
Right, okay, the next,
possibly 2 months before,
okay, the next agenda, the next.
unless we
meeting-
just improve the funding tonight, which again goes back to my.
Right. The next regular commission meeting is the 21st. That agenda is pretty much set by now. So I'm talking about, actually, this might work out. I'm talking about probably the first agenda in October, by which time we would also have a new city manager on board, or at least hired, or at least, approved. So, because I don't want to do it as, I've been critical of people doing add-ons, and we've already got the agenda, I believe, for the 21st. So, so it would be October 5th. And that gives me enough time to work with staff to work with Joan to develop an agenda item. I just want to throw it on there and say, hey, it's a great idea, to actually give a little background as to what, how this agenda, come into like new business, explain the process, and get it on the 5th. Then you could, then it would be on the 12th. It would be the next week for you.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And Carla, if you would like to have any comments, please just unmute and catch my attention. I don't mean to ignore you. But Brent, do you have a comment on that?
I think Mark made an excellent point, and I've definitely evaluating in my head, just as you described it, how we got to where we were, where it didn't work. And I think what we intended to do was fulfill our mission to, acquire, aggregate land, make it something that could appeal to a developer to do redevelopment. That's the R in the CRA. What it became was viewed as some sort of political thing, or who are those folks at the CRA and how are they trying to change our downtown?
No, I agree.
I think, and I think that makes sense. I'm not here to decry politics. I'm married to a politician, but my,
God bless
I
you.
think, yes, yeah, exactly. The thing that I think Mark had pointed out, and Brendan as well, is, well, we're just saying this developer is the right fit, we own a big chunk of that land, and we think that they are a good team to go forward, they will still see the city commission to actually turn that property into a building. And so a lot of the actual responsibility of how this happens lies with the city. The city has codes and
And we have
ordinances.
ownership and we, you know, our money's in, you know,
Right,
the financing, we've got to figure that out. That's very confusing. to me.
right. So, but I
you're
think
making
it
a good
makes,
point. I think
it
you're
makes
making,
sense to me
yeah.
that Mark points out, hey, the city commission actually regulates and the, you know, the planning department and everything regulates how this thing comes out. All we're trying to do is put money and try to facilitate the
Mhm.
process. So it's probably not the right place for us to lead the discussion. And you know, I don't mean to upset the apple cart. I know Mark said he's only one vote, but he's a convincing argument that doesn't make sense for us to lead the discussion. I 100% want to participate in this discussion, but maybe as not an elected, but as an appointed official, I should not be leading the discussion. I think that makes sense.
and I
And
think
I'm,
this,
if it delays
Right.
it 6 or 8 weeks, we're already,
right.
gosh, you know, pretty far down the way. We own the property, so the land prices aren't affecting us. And I think it's okay if it makes it succeed. That's the most important thing, is it succeeds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No,
Right.
I agree.
I appreciate, Betty, your thoughts on how to make this work with this discussion.
Well, no, I'm happy to do, this is, this project is sort of a passion of mine. And, you know, the financing is kind of whatever it is, I don't understand it. You own some of it, we own some of it. I see this, like I said earlier, I kind of see it as a really good opportunity for us to do this as kind of a joint project, a
I
cooperative.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah,
not
no,
agree more.
I'm good. Of course, my fellow commissioners might just say, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind, but I'll take that. You know, we'll see what happens when we go. But it would be on the, it would be on the 5th. It would be on the October 5th agenda, which is not that far away. God knows this year is flying by. We're having so much time flies when you're having fun.
Right.
So,
Would it be inappropriate for me to make a little comment here?
Please.
please, Damon, please.
Well, what little I know about this whole effort to this point, I mean, there's history, there's complexity. I think there's nerve damage that got everyone to this point. And Mark, it's great to see you. And I appreciate your comments. I really do, your accolades. But not being in any of your seats, I appreciate what you're saying, you know, to the extent that the community can see that this is a unified effort, whether it's led by the city commission. I see how that makes a lot of sense, considering that it's a new city commission that didn't like what happened before that the CRA did, you know? So, and it's not just the CRA throwing something at the wall again, you know? As somebody who does this as a third party, I think, you know, I would hate to be at the end of this effort and have a few city commissioners wonder, what are we doing? And, you know, was not a good idea. So I just concur with the direction you all are heading in, and Mayor, the fact that you're willing to pivot and think about it this way is very refreshing. So.
But I'm just one of us that got elected, really. This is not about my ego. This is about how I can serve the city, and I totally mean that. Okay, so I will have to work with, you know, with Juan and our staff and Joan and her staff about developing the agenda item, so that it's not me that writes it.
Can we ask David Tulsas, can we vote on like a approval of the money? Like Brendan said, is there something we can do now that would facilitate this working better? Or
Yeah, David Tulsa, CRA attorney. I think in light of the fact that the item is on your action agenda, that you can authorize the funding. You could also authorize the execution of an interlocal agreement with the city to provide the funding, you know, and subject to, you know, review by legal counsel. So it wouldn't even have to come back here again if you didn't want it to. I mean, if you wanted to come back, you can authorize the funding, and then we can bring back the interlocal agreement after the city commission takes whatever action they're going to take.
Well, let me ask, For want of a better word, the abandonment of the old RFP is part of it. I would ask that to be, without that happening, I can't move forward. Seriously.
Mr. Chair. I actually don't see the abandonment of the old RFP on the action agenda.
Thought it
It's,
was.
it's in part, it's in the discussion of
It's in
the,
the
Recommendation.
okay.
it's part of the recommendation of that
Oh,
item.
gotcha. Okay, because I am all in favor of that. I'm not in favor of the funding agreement being in place without knowing whether the scope is something that's agreed on by the city commission, because I think that has direct impact on funding and dollar amounts.
My
if-
intent is to bring, excuse, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm gonna. My intent is to bring this agreement to the commission.
Right, Madam Mayor, but don't you think there might be some input or feedback from the other commissioners about this exact scope?
Okay, fair enough. I mean, that's up to however you want to handle as long as you say you'll pay for it, I'm good, however you want to do that.
No, and again, this is just me, but I have no issue with the funding, and I really think Treasure Coast is the right person, right group to do it. I think a little space to do the structural analysis and to make sure City Commission says that this is the right scope.
Mhm.
And again, maybe there's a little bit of tweaks, Dana, about a point of origin, right? That it's the working with the City Commission with input from the CRA. This is not working with the CRA and also interviewing the City Commission. Would be helpful on the scope. If that's in place and whether what's added or not or taken away doesn't affect the funding, I'm not opposed to the funding, but I think we need to leave room for that.
Do we have Joan, do we know when we don't know when those structural things are gonna go, whatever they are. So let's not hold it up. So.
They are supposed to be done by the end of the month.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. So, October 5th, I will, and I have to talk to Juan, who does, set the agenda. My intent would be to work with staff and get this, everyone's gonna be so happy that I did this. To work with, the mayor, so I can just tell him. To get it, to get an agenda item for the October 5th agenda for the regular meeting. And then we can, and have it as an action item, have it under new business, but work with, and have staff work, and maybe Joan, talk to the commit, actually before it comes. I can't talk to them because of that sunshine thing, but Joan can. And where did this come from? Why all of a sudden is the city taking this on? I think that you guys, Joan, can, work with our staff, explain how this happened, and that I think it's a good idea. I think it's, I really see this as an opportunity to view this as a global city project, rather than my project, your project, but have it be our project. And I think that just in terms of acceptance and perception, I think in terms of the public, let's give them a united.
This is Carla.
Hey, Carla.
Go ahead.
I've been listening, and I've been quiet because I am actually in Ohio. And my internet is kind of spotty, so I'm going to be quick. I want to make sure that we keep the part of the agreement where we will interview people and have the commitment and the comments reflect all of the people in the city.
Absolutely.
Someone made a very good point about how the project became a political issue, and it was driven by the people that lived in the area where it was affected. But we haven't thought about how other people's vision of the city should be considered. And so I certainly would not want to agree to anything that would take that part out of the agreement.
Carla, I would not bring it to the commission if that was a piece of it. That's the whole point of this, is to make this a unified, if we can figure this, a unified project, and getting from your corner of town to my corner of town, I mean, wherever. And I think the Treasure Coast, we've worked with them before, and I think they are uniquely positioned to understand. They've worked with Lake Worth before, and so I agree with you completely. There's no hesitation there, Carla.
Okay, and I also think that with the city taking ownership, the commission taking ownership of the project, it's going to reflect the fact that they're willing to put themselves out there to try and make this project work. And I think that that will go a long way to reassuring a number of people as to whether or not their voices will be heard.
Great,
You know,
I agree.
and so I think that this is a good way to go. I
Good.
just don't want to lessen the input from common people who have definite thoughts about the vision for our city.
You can leave the Vernon
Thanks,
Heights
Carla.
group.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla. So
I hope
the,
all's well with your family, Carla.
Thank you. Yes.
so thank you, Carla. So I think what we're looking for is either a motion to table or a motion to approve funding and signing the interlocal subject to the city commission approving first.
And,
So-
and I think we want to include the abandonment of the existing RFP as part of that motion.
Thanks.
Oh, that'd be separate? Okay.
So, okay, so then we need a second motion after the first.
Let's do the can I make a motion to abandon the existing RFP? Because I think that one is probably the
We
most.
we have a motion to abandon the RFP. I would only ask that you consider maybe saying that without prejudice, meaning they can come back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes.
abandon the existing RFP without prejudice.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion from any of the board? Yes, Drew.
So I know, I think Joan mentioned that Rose Murgy's still interested in working on the property. And maybe this is all lost, but at the end of this process, if a project comes up that, is viable and so forth, it might be more efficient just to say, well, okay, this is what you do now. Instead of then going back through an RFP process. I don't know. Thinking out loud here.
It is a good point. It's dramatically affects the timeline. That's for sure. Do you go back out to RFP?
I think one thing as a person that responds to RFPs, it's like if the scoring or the rules change at all and you didn't win, it's 100% discussion inside the office. Should we protest this? Because it's like, hold on a second. They won under one set of rules and now they get to play under a different set of rules. I am also in favor of accelerating and not in favor of slowing it down. And I like the concept, but I don't know if it opens us up to opportunities for protests if there's other respondents are participating.
If I might.
Fair point. Yep. David.
Yeah, I think, from a legal perspective, if you're going to have a whole new plan or a set of elements or factors that are going to be involved that weren't there originally, my recommendation would be that you should have a new RFP.
Good points. Thanks.
Okay, further discussion? Call a question, sorry?
Public.
Oh, sorry, public? Okay, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Second motion, somebody ready for that?
I'm willing to make one.
Okay,
I'm willing to authorize only the notice to proceed, which is $10,000 on the scope of services. Subject to the approval of a scope from the city commission and a interlocal agreement coming back to the CRA for execution that reflects that.
I'm muted. That interlocal then would be something that we're approving now for me to sign. right? Right, Mark? I just want to make sure.
No, I'm, oh, okay, so we can't do a notice to proceed without the interlocal agreement, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Correct.
As
Okay,
I understand it, the idea is that this agreement, subject to changing the name of the contracting party to the city of Lake Worth Beach, would go to the city commission for their consideration.
okay, then I want to amend my motion.
Yeah,
My motion would be to table this item until a scope and interlocal agreement comes back, having been discussed and voted on by the city commission.
is there a second for the motion?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Carla.
Okay, if we have decided that we want to partner with the commission on this issue, are we arguing semantics at this point? You know, as to rather say, we'll table it until then, or are we all in on the project? What do you really want to do about the project? What direction do you want to go today?
Yeah, I think that's,
It-
so
that's
Mark,
And,
maybe,
and
My
Mr. Chair, yeah, and Carla, to explain, I want to give room for the city commission to review the scope here and add or subtract. And put their fingerprint on that, which may affect the funding or the final price. And I also, I think that step is very important. And to table it until it comes back, having been voted on by the city commission, I think accomplishes that. So I think to approve this scope and tell the city commission, you need to approve exactly this, is what I'm uncomfortable with.
Okay,
Would it be possible to approve up to this amount at this scope? And I just want to make sure that what we send to them shows commitment.
mhm.
So I'm not against waiting, whatever it is, 2 more weeks to make sure everybody's on the same page. But I don't want, when this comes up, that we didn't look like we wanted to show that partnership. I mean, anybody who's listening to this meeting knows that, but it might not be as obvious there. Now, I understand, appreciate if we say we want to approve this scope and fee, and then they say we need 25 meetings, I know 5 more people, then what happens to us? But if we said we have conditional approval up to that amount at this scope, and if they wanted to show, if they wanted to start chopping back the scope a little bit, Dana, Joan, Brendan can sign off with our conditional approval that it could get smaller. It can't get bigger until we sign off on it. Maybe that would be a,
David,
I'm looking for the same thing.
we're
I'm
all
looking
looking at David.
we're finding middle ground.
It would be helpful for me to be able to bring to the commission the fact that the CRA is committed to funding this, because obviously funding is a big deal for us. So that would be my ask, is that there'd be some commitment tonight that you're not going to say, well, it was interesting, but we're not going to pay for it.
So
Which I don't
That
think
was
you
my
David,
do.
could we, I'm sorry, Mr.
Sorry,
Chair.
I was gonna say, I didn't want to speak for the mayor, but that was my concern. It's a little easier to have a discussion over something that's already paid for.
So David, is there a way to signal our commitment, funding commitment up to the amount that's included in the scope without saying this is the scope?
I don't know that I mean, God knows what's gonna happen.
You can, I got it. You
Go
can,
ahead,
you can
David.
commit to fund up to X amount for the project to be conducted by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, subject to the execution, approval of an interlocal agreement between the city and the CRA. So what you're saying is that you're going to commit to it, subject to an interlocal agreement. That interlocal agreement is going to have attached to it the agreement that the city commission approves. So you'll know before you have to approve the funding formally what that scope is. I mean, and I think that's getting you
love
to
that.
the city commission, it's giving them 85%,
Yeah.
intent of what the CRA wants to do.
Is the motioner agreeable to amending or restating?
I'll withdraw my whole motion.
Yeah, restate it if you want.
I'll restate exactly what David said, which says to, you're gonna.
So is it
have to jump in.
to authorize the expenditure of up to 114, what was it? Make sure I get this right.
100,900.
110.
Oh, 110, sorry.
I
Okay,
mean,
so to authorize the expenditure of up to $110,000 for the L&M Street project as presented by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, subject to the execution or subject to the approval of an interlocal agreement between the city of Lake Worth Beach and the CRA.
And an amended scope attached to that.
Well, and the interlocal agreement will include the agreement between the city and the Treasure Coast.
I'm good with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board?
I don't think this requires an amendment to the motion or anything, but obviously if the city wants a little more, we can increase that amount. It just procedurally, it just have to come back to us. So
Mhm.
Mayor, I don't want you to say this is all they'll pay, but
Thank you.
we'll consider additional if it's merits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
God knows there's a lot of opinions on the commission, so I
Right.
will try to ferry this across the river with as little waves as possible.
and just from procedural standpoint, the agreement will come back to you. So if it is more, you'll be able to approve that.
Mhm.
I mean, Dana, I mean, the Treasure Coast has such a good history with the city
Mhm.
that, I'm gonna, and the commission will have a copy of the interlocal. So one would hope that they wouldn't be as creative as we sometimes are.
Okay, are there any comments from the public on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I think this is a really good step in a joint project in getting everybody involved, like Carla said, and having us work together to make this a great little city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate
Thank you,
your,
Mayor.
your comments. Please,
Happy to be here.
and please share the amount of time that we spent discussing this item when you meet with you.
Yeah, but they'll blame it on me because I always talk too much, so I'm a little circumspect.
Okay,
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you,
Honored to be
Dana.
working with you
Thank you.
again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana.
I believe your next agenda item is the purchase of the properties on the north. Okay, I'm gonna cut out, but I just want to, I know that Commissioner Malega is listening today. And I just want to thank her for being as on top of things as to discover this little piece of property for sale. And thank Joan for jumping on it so quickly because it was a really team effort and I appreciate that. Having said that, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you very much. I
Good
look
night.
forward to working with you guys. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, Mayor.
Good night.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, as the mayor said, our next item is item B, the purchase of properties on North E Street for affordable housing. Joan, if you would please read us off.
Sure. This all came about because Commissioner Malega called me and let me know that there were 3 adjacent vacant properties on North E that were available for sale. I took a look at them, obviously on Papa, and then called Anderson and Carr, our brokers, and told them that I thought these 3 potential properties would be really great for affordable housing. They did a very quick opinion of value for us. And the seller actually came down in price in order to come into agreement with that opinion. And I think that wasn't also because we actually told them that it was going to be for affordable housing and it was something that they really believed in. So I would like the board to authorize the purchase of these 3 properties on North E Street, 309 through 311, and to move funds from the economic development line to the capital project budget of this year, this current fiscal year, and work with our current NSP nonprofit partners for the development of 3 affordable units, for sale units on these particular 3 properties.
Are there any questions for Joan? Or actually, let's do a motion and then we'll have, I think we can come up with a motion maybe and then have discussion.
I'll move to follow staff recommendation to purchase the property as identified by Anderson Carr,
Thank you,
North E
Brian.
Street.
Okay, is there a second for that?
And to authorize the execution of all necessary documents. Right?
And also to authorize all execution of all necessary documents. Thank you, Dan.
Perfect. Thank you, Brent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Carla. Okay, so now we can have some discussion. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Brent?
Just, I think my phone just died. I was just curious, do we have a nonprofit partner? I think it was mentioned on there.
Have we identified somebody, or that's probably the next step with an RFP, I would guess?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we actually don't do RFPs. We're
Oh.
actually following the NSP policy and procedures where we would just find a partner who has the funds in order to develop these 3 properties. And we've narrowed it down to 2 of our nonprofit partners, and we'll work it out with them.
Okay, so we're down.
I lost you.
Overheard.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, David?
Just so you know, we've been in the process of doing the due diligence in the tackle and subject to your approval. we post it.
Great, thank you for the update there. Joan, can you just comment in terms of the profile for the future residents of these? In terms, affordable housing is a very generic and broad term. Could you
So,
identify?
Sure,
our
we would be
target?
following NSP guidelines, which would be these properties would be available to households making 120% or below of area median income.
Okay, and is there any kind of deed restriction in terms of how long okay, so it's gonna follow the standard, what we've done in the
A
past?
minimum of 15 years, and I think we've even discussed making it a little longer.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Mark.
Joan, I think this is self-evident, but I just wanted to point out, this is to end up with 3 individual homes,
Correct.
correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Drew? Carla?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to,
Yep, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
sorry.
I'd like to commend Commissioner Malega. You know, she not only does her job, but she does it really well. And for her to look out and find the properties, but take it to the people where it needed to go and then follow through. That is just so outstanding. You know, I'm just so pleased that she is one of our commissioners, you know, and that she really works with everybody in the city and she works well.
Thank you for that, I agree.
Brendan, I think Commissioner Belega had her hand up, if you would
Oh,
like to
sure.
recognize her.
Yeah, please.
And
Commissioner?
can we unmute?
Oh,
Thank you. I just want to say thank you all for taking the opportunity to listen to this presentation. And, you know, I want to commend Joan because when I called her in the middle of a frantic day and said, hey, I just got an alert from this guy named Brett Taylor that he's listed these properties. She said, who's Brett Taylor? And I said, well, you and Brett Taylor need to know each other. He is a great realtor in town who has me on his Rolodex of, I guess you would call it advertisement text messages or whatever. So when he sells or when he lists something, I'm always, you know, in that group. And I want to commend the CRA for really thinking forward and changing the mindset from affordable housing to affordable home ownership. And that's really changing the generational wealth gap. And that's thinking forward. And it's also going to help us raise the sense of pride in our city. Obviously, you all know that I'm a first-time homeowner through the CRA's NSP 2 home program. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. So it's great to be able to help facilitate the next opportunity for the next homeowners to come into our community and be part of this great city.
Thanks, Commissioner. I appreciate it. So I think we've heard from all the board. Is there any other comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Joan, do you have a report for us?
I do. I have a very quick report. Just to give you an update on Village Flats and the development of, I think it was called the Perch at the Circle property. We've been working with community sustainability and the developer and Habit on those plans, and we should be ready to submit site plans for both of those potential developments probably in November or December. I know it's been quite a while, but it's been very difficult for developers to get quotes back and bids back and try to come up with a budget that is reasonable. But we're looking forward to hopefully getting permits from those early next year. I also just wanted to mention Day of the Dead. Our staff has been working really hard on coming up with not just a day of events, but over a month of events that will take place, not only at Hatch, but also with some of our community partners here that are businesses. And that particular calendar is is in front of all of you. And we also have another calendar there for you, which just talks about the Hatch events that are taking place from now until May. We obviously had, the feeding that took place at Hatch, and then we had the mobile county bus that comes here to help people with rental assistance. And over the summer, we've done a lot of renovations to the place. It's kind of a constant project. So it's not that we, aren't having events or Hatch or we've slowed down. We obviously did slow down last year because of COVID, but this year we have many events planned, and hopefully, COVID will cooperate with us. We always are looking for volunteers to help us on these many events that we have here. Just remembering that, these are Cultural Renaissance Foundation events for the most part. They're all paid for by donations or grants, and the work that goes into it is substantial. And we have a very small staff, and asking them to stay here every night and on weekends, they never complain, but we could always use some help. And that is all I have for you.
Great, thank you, John. And I will move on to board member comments. Carla, if you don't mind starting, because I'll forget if I don't start with you.
I am really pleased with the direction of the CRA. I think that we've tried to be a problem solver and tried to work with the city. And I'm really proud of the job that we're doing. And I look forward to us doing more projects that are outside the box, and I think that Joan is just doing a phenomenal job in leading us in the right direction. That's it.
Thank you, Carla. Brent?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah. So my phone died. I just want to, first off, really thank the mayor. It was really great to have her so engaged in working through in real time the best way to get this process or keep this process moving forward now that we've started to get a new direction. And really, Mark, I wanted to thank you for bringing the perspective you always bring, but I think that might make a huge difference in the way that the discourse plays out. And sometimes I can be, I guess, a little over optimistic. Oh, we're all Lake Worth residents. We'll figure this out together. But I think you're right in the direction you gave us. And I think we're all going to realize some real benefits because of your comments. So thank you. Other than that, great job, everybody. And thank you. Drew?
Yep. Just echoing everything they're saying, Joan, Emily, Chris, you're rock stars. We get stuff done. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Perfect. Mark?
No comments from me.
I just wanted to say I appreciate staff and I appreciate the board and of course, David, everything that you help us through. Everybody stay safe and healthy and take a motion to adjourn. Oh, I do want to recognize Zach and Paul for your efforts too. I mean, you guys always move quickly and I think, you know, that's the game right now in real estate. We need you to move. You got to move quick. So thank you for that. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn. Move adjournment. Second? Okay, all those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Good
Stay
night.
healthy, everybody. Stay healthy.
You too.